Welcome to Beyond the Velvet Rope with Neal Oates Jr., the podcast that takes you on an extraordinary journey into the world of luxury service. Join us as we unlock the secrets, stories, and strategies behind exceptional experiences. From anticipating VIP needs to crafting unforgettable memories, we'll guide you on a path to service excellence in the realm of the affluent. Let's elevate your expertise and redefine the art of world-renowned service. Here's your host, Neal Oates Jr.
Welcome to the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we're diving into a topic that every real estate professional, business owner, and global-minded leader needs to understand, and that is cultural intelligence. Because in a world where deals cross borders and client expectations are shaped by culture as much as capital, being smart isn't enough. You have to be culturally smart. My guest is someone whose work has literally become the handbook for navigating international business. Terri Morrison is the best-selling author of Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands, a book that's been called essential reading for professionals who want to succeed in diverse global markets. Whether you're welcoming clients from Dubai, negotiating with buyers from Brazil, or hosting investors from India, what you say and how you say it matters. And Terri is here to help us do it the right way. Terri, I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite a long time. Welcome Beyond the Velvet Rope, Miss Terri Morrison. How are you doing today, ma'am?
I'm delighted to be here with you, Neal. I'm just honored that you've invited me. Thank you so much.
And the honor is mine that you accepted. And so I can't wait for this conversation. Now, Terri, here's what we were having some conversation before we got on air, and I did not tell you about this, but in my intro, I said a couple of things about you, writing the book, bestseller. But would you tell the audience something that about Terri Morrison that I did not share in the opener?
Well, since it's summertime, I can share that I love gardening, and I particularly enjoy putting in native plants because my family is highly aware of the environment. One of my daughters is actually law enforcement in Yellowstone National Park. Another one has worked in environmental restoration of in places like riverbeds and large tracts of commercial environments that need to be restored. So, yeah, we plant a lot of native plants, and I love the pollinators. So, yeah, that's something maybe that's unusual.
Oh man, so I absolutely love it. Now, would you tell the audience where you are geographically?
Yes, I'm about 15 miles west of Philadelphia, in an area called Newtown Square, PA. People confuse it with New Hope or Newtown, but Newtown Square, it's a suburb of Philly.
Okay, and so I'm excited because in a matter of days, you will be leaving Pennsylvania, heading south to Orlando to hang out with us at our annual real estate conference. And so I can't wait to see you there, hear what you're going to impart to us. But I want to dive straight into some goodness. Would you please, for those who are unfamiliar with your work, what inspired you to write Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands?
Well, I started out as a Spanish teacher, Neil. That was my undergrad. And I had to go to study abroad to learn the language. I had no Spanish at all before college. I had a ton of other languages, but I got to college, thought, French majors are a dime a dozen. There is no Italian major, no Portuguese major, so guess I'm going to take Spanish. And it was the best thing I could have done because I still have best friends in Spain who will meet me at the drop of a hat.
Wow.
You just keep those connections forever. And it made me highly aware of the intercultural values that are different across borders. And we need those connections to be trusting and profound and diplomatic. So I learned, as a junior in college that this is how it feels to be a minority. This is how it feels to understand that, your way isn't the best way or the only way. And then when I went into business, I went into high tech right after teaching, and realized that a lot of organizations are not aware of international business practices,
Mm.
the variety of them, and that really can sink a lot of deals. So I started my firm right after I was working for Booz Allen and Hamilton, uh, and didn't look back. That was in the 90s. Yeah.
Okay, so you said a lot there, and I do want to reflect on something that you just shared. You mentioned being a Spanish major, but then you said you went abroad to learn. Was the travel abroad for learning, was that a requirement? Was that something that you felt necessary? Because, and the reason I asked Terry is because today we hear, well, I don't have to travel abroad to immerse myself in the culture or in the language. I can use Babbel, or I can use Duolingo, or maybe I could just do something online or be here. Was that a requirement? And why did you think that was necessary and so transformational in your learning experience?
It was a requirement.
Ooh.
But yeah, but it was because I was in a very good language program. And I think that even if it had not been, it
Hmm.
was an opportunity in my mind to explore other venues, learn about different practices socially and business and education. And it was thrilling to get away from home too. And back in the day, pre mobile phones, I mean, I don't know how my folks did it because I could not talk to them basically unless I went to downtown Valencia to a big area where you would make phone calls.
Mm.
So I didn't speak with them more than maybe a couple times in 6 months.
Okay. And now, Terry, you mentioned so it was required, but then you mentioned something that even when you got into the business world, you started seeing that companies who were doing international business were not aware of how to I'm going to say how to properly interact internationally. And so, is that something that you said, wow, we've got to do something about this? And so, where did you identify that opportunity? Because many people, I'm sure, saw it, but they didn't do anything about it. Why did you go a step further and say, there's opportunity here, but there's also a need there?
I believe you're right about that. A lot of people will notice things that are particularly unusual or difficult. Even yesterday I was speaking with someone who just came back from France, and all they had was complaints. And I thought,
Mm,
for a sophisticated person in the pharmaceutical industry, this is not a very open-minded view. And it determined the outcome of that sales call. It did not go well. So you can have the most well educated individual at the top of their game in tech or Wall Street or finance, and they are oblivious to the fact that in the first 2 minutes they've insulted their client by arriving a little minute late or moving the furniture or not shaking hands or looking at them correctly or a million things. So if you look at it from a service orientation, it
hmm.
helps a lot, and that's, I think, part of what I've always felt. I feel as though if I communicate effectively and make them comfortable, I have an advantage over someone who doesn't do that, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I saw that happen in, a tech firm that I worked with and then in Booz Allen, and I thought, this would be fun to do. I would like to build a database and just take care of all of these particulars for people who don't have time to do the research. So I asked my boss, I said, I did the first country was India and I did it in a digital an online product.
Hmm.
And I said, if I built this, would you buy it? And he said, yes. So I quit and I started my company. Yeah.
And I love the fact that this lets us know how you're wired. You said, "Oh, I think it would be fun to dive in and to do all of this." And so, as a benefactor of your work, I want to tell you thank you for doing the laborious and tedious work of compiling all of the information because it has made my life better. Now, on me, it is fun for me to experience and now teach some of the things that you have put in the book and all of your works. But I'm not sure that I would have as much fun compiling the information. Now, Terri, there's something about the book that jumps out at me every time I mention it, every time I look at it, every time I read it, and that is the title. Kiss, bow,
Mhm.
or shake hands. What does the title represent about how we approach global interactions?
Well, you have that first initial 7 seconds, as they say, to make a good impression, and when we were throwing around titles with the publisher, which is now Simon& and Schuster, they bought the, original product, from Adams Media. When we were tossing titles around, this one popped out, and I thought, "Oh, it's a little off the wall," but really, you want something to stand out on a bookshelf in Barnes& and Nobles, right?
Yeah.
So, that is in the business section, and the first word is "kiss," and you know that that's not on most of the books. So, that worked out very well. It really gives you an indication that this is a book about not just protocol of how to greet someone, but if you read a little deeper, it talks about cultural overviews, negotiating strategies, protocol. And so you understand this does belong in the business section, which is where it was always categorized.
Okay, and the entire idea we mentioned is not good enough to be smart. You can be a brilliant pharmaceutical rep, but if you don't have that cultural intelligence, you
Yes,
could really sink your chances before you even get started. Would
yes.
you do us the honor and favor? Would you define cultural intelligence in your own words and how it differs from just general etiquette or being polite?
I think there's a form of empathy in there, which requires a little bit more time. And a lot of us are pressed for time. But
Hmm.
when you approach someone and you really try to read them and their reactions, their body language, the inflection of their voice, the proximity that they stand to you, those are all aspects of cultural intelligence. And if you move a little further, yes, you can get even more sophisticated with understanding the cultural orientation of a person, which is really how they absorb data. How do you take in information? Are you left or right brain? Do you like quantitative or qualitative? Do you really want to stay on a schedule? Are you sensitive to time or are you flexible? So there's millions of these sophisticated aspects of interacting with someone that will prepare you well if you're going to Beijing versus, Rio, uh, for the length of time that you're going to be negotiating, how aggressive or how amenable they are to changing a contract, for example, at the last minute,
Hmm.
or all of those aspects. That all weaves into this web of cultural awareness and orientation. But all of that doesn't work. None of it works if you don't understand yourself. So I think that's why I put the USA in there.
Yeah.
In every book that I do, I think, look at how we are viewed by others, not
Stop
just,
right there, Terry. Stop right there. And
okay.
now, I love that part because you just mentioned this, and I was going to ask you this off air, but since you brought this up, in the part talking about the United States of America and how we're viewed by others, if
Mhm.
you are a domestic born individual, if you pride yourself in being from the United States, you will say, man, she's mean, she's rude, but it's a reality in there. And I think it's important for us to have that healthy dose of reality. So, as you said, we can know not only who we are, but how we're viewed from the outside looking in. So, I just want you to continue down that path if you would.
Sure. It's part of the seminars and keynotes and workshops I do is I just ask, how do you think someone from Mexico or Russia views us? Give me some adjectives. And it always starts with, we're blunt. We're very, we think honesty is the best policy, and we think, that it's a commandment, thou shalt not lie. But truth is perception. If I am from a culture that values subtle communications, nuances, and has come from an environment that even an eyebrow lift speaks reams, they aren't going to appreciate this wildly gesticulating Italian up in front of a room. It's going to distract them. They
Yes.
won't hear anything I say. So I know that I have to stand totally still if I'm in, say, Hong Kong, because they need to translate in their minds what I'm saying. This is cognitively draining, and any gestures that I make are going to diminish that communication. And there's also all those aspects of that we haven't touched on, but like, people here like to crack jokes when they start a presentation. It loosens up the room. They even teach you to do that in some, speaking training events. That falls flat on its face in Asia
Hmm.
because, if you're a leader and you're up in front of people, you should be extremely composed and capable of holding the audience with just the data and be respectful, and because they respect you. So none of the jokes, none of the wild gestures, none of that works. Just, watch President Xi. He never moves. He just stands there and he has a little smile. And, if you understand that and you adapt to it, then you don't take offense.
So Terry, I love what you did in the work. You broke it down, not stereotype, but generalization. When we look at the high context, low context, gives us an idea of what we're dealing with and who we're going to be interacting with. So I love that part as a beginning foundation. Saying, okay, high context culture, saving face. We're going to make sure we respect hierarchy and the elderly. We're not going to make prolonged eye contact, all of that. So I am fanning out right now. So I get excited. But here's what I want to ask you, because I know that even for those of us who are in the United States, maybe we're never leaving. We have no plans to leave our borders, to go outside of our country. Why is cultural intelligence no longer optional in today's interconnected business environment? Why is it no longer a nice to have, but a must have for any business professional?
Because we are an incredibly diverse culture, even though it might not be evident everywhere in the
Hmm.
country. Uh, it will definitely affect your capacity to sell. I mean, my last, most recent book was published by the American Bar Association. Why? Because lawyers are kind of myopic, no offense, but they're like doctors. They have to absorb so much information and be so astute in their field. They don't study international business or
Hmm.
cultures. It wasn't even at Harvard until after 9/11. It wasn't a focus for law. Now there's
Mm.
international law in many, many universities. But because you want to succeed, you not only need to understand your client, you need to surround yourself with a diverse board of, committee, whatever it is that you're working with, because that enriches the viewpoint for problem solving and analysis and strategies and so forth. You've got to have multiple viewpoints because you think about it, over 70% of the world lives outside of the United States, and a lot of those come here, right? So,
Yes,
yeah, yeah, you're cutting off your nose to spite your face if you don't do the work, right? Study a little
absolutely.
bit, and suddenly your market blows up.
Oh, okay. Now, you've already given us some of the background. We have a solid foundation. Now, I want to ask the converse of what we've been talking about because you're saying, well, this is what's going to benefit you. If you do this, you'll find yourself with more opportunities. I want to know because you're in front of tens of thousands of people. Your book is in front of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, from the first printing until now. From your experience, what are the biggest mistakes that professionals make when they try to wing it with cross cultural interactions? What are those things that we're doing and you're like, oh, no, don't do that?
uh, Gee whiz, let's think. If you prioritize it, I think patience is one of the key aspects that we don't have that
Hmm.
destroys opportunities. And I mean, you can see it here in the US. If you're trying to close a deal and you've got a deadline that's artificially imposed by your company, you've got to hit your quarterlies or your weeklies or whatever. Your client doesn't care about your quarterlies. And, and yet you will push and push. We as a culture push and push because we're focused on in a monochronic culture on time. So that has destroyed tremendous numbers of relationships. You go to the Mediterranean, even, which is very familiar with our culture, you're going to have a year-long contract process, in many situations. So and China, I mean, the Japanese, when they approach uh, contracts, they understand it's a long process and they build a long process into that contract. They proposed, I'll go back to the national parks, they proposed a 250-year contract with the National Park Service some years ago because they were going to handle the concession stands in the national parks. And our attorneys in the US we were like, is this a typo? What is this? So, yeah, but you have to be aware that some cultures think in 100-year cycles.
Right. Right, right. Okay, and now thinking about that, we're going to transition because you mentioned contracts, and then you talk about even when our clients or our customers, they aren't concerned with our goals, our deadlines. A lot of our audience is primarily going to be in the real estate industry. They're going to be real estate professionals,
Right,
and many of those serve international clients or they're entering that space.
right.
How can the framework for Kiss, Bow, Shake Hands help them build trust and credibility faster across those cultural lines?
I think this goes to that question of trust. How do you build a relationship, or do you even need one? Because we are a transactional culture. We don't
Say that.
really.
Hold on, Terry. Say that again because we always say in the United States that real estate is relationships, but it sounds good. But the reality is we are very transactional. So go ahead and just explain the difference to us if you would.
That's absolutely true. You're right, because we use taglines to make us feel like that's gonna work. Look at me, I know my business. But, a relationship for us is so different than a relationship for a Spaniard. A relationship for a Spaniard, and you're married to a Cuban American, did you say? And she
Yes,
has
ma'am.
probably a, a strong network of family and friends. It could extend into the hundreds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're all important. And if you say one bad thing about one of them, it's going to be wildfire amongst the whole network, and there goes your
Yeah.
reputation, right? So that's a relationship in a Latino culture.
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking about the USA, Canada, Northern Europe, Germany, it's transactional because, say you want to buy a car, uh, you might do your purchasing process like this. I don't know if it's true, and you stop me if I'm wrong, but you look online, you see
Mm-hmm.
the information, you look at the V8 engine or whatever it is you want, and then you look for the dealership environment. You build it yourself online, and then you just have it delivered right to a a car dealership, you don't really need the salesperson,
Right.
right? You just go in there, you paid your money, you pick your car up. If you're in Mexico, so that's a transactional environment.
Right.
You're in Mexico, you would not walk into that car dealership unless you knew at least one person in there personally.
Hmm.
And you are probably using financing from the family, not through a bank. So you will pool your money amongst your resources to buy things like cars or education for a family member. And they actually meet monthly and talk about these things in many cultures and decide where's the community money going this month. So that's a different approach. And that tells you why it takes longer in real relationship based cultures than in the US.
So, Terry, I love the fact that you said real relationships. And this is something that after studying your work, after listening to many of your seminars, it is one of those things that, and it goes back to the patience part or the lack of patience part and lack of empathy. And so we're sitting here thinking that, yes, we are real estate professionals and that it's going to be a win-win or no deal, or we are a relationship business since it is real estate. And we're like, well, that's a great ideal. It's a great tagline, but that is not our reality. So now that we're talking about our US based real estate professionals, what would you say to a US real estate agent who believes, I mean, real estate is local? Right? It's about my market. So I don't need to study cross cultural differences. I don't need to understand or apply or be aware of Spaniard or Mexican. What would you say to that real estate professional?
Your odds to succeed are important to you, right? You want an
Right.
advantage, right? There's over 1 million real estate agents in this country. So,
Hmm.
how do you stand out? Do you stand out because you got a great photo on your business card and you hand it out at a lot of local meetings? That's nice. Um, your reputation is really critical. And you have one way to up your game really quickly, and that's education.
Hmm.
Because if you understand, yes, the demographics in your area, where would be some potential niches that are not being filled, and if that's an intercultural communication scenario, there's a lot of people coming into Philadelphia that are from different cultures. And, as much as I love to think that we're all very interested in welcoming individuals, uh, it's kind of unusual to find somebody who really did the research and will go to that church or that school or wherever, maybe volunteer and learn about that culture and do some research with good books or online or whatever, even going to libraries and seeing who's getting volunteer English programs,
Mm.
and trying to support that. There's a million ways to do the research and get the education, and that will differentiate you in an environment where most people from international venues pay cash, right, for their
Hmm.
homes. So it's a market that you should not just, miss out on. It's a tremendous market. And if we look at, just Asian investors alone, it's kind of hard for someone who's never been to like a restaurant that doesn't serve hoagies and hamburgers to appreciate eating together is important,
Yeah.
welcoming people into environments that are, a little different than maybe a picnic up at your church, which everybody already. You go to where the work is. That's
Yeah.
that's the difference, and that's how the book came about too. I had to go where I didn't know anything and find the people and do the research, with individuals who were native to that or extremely experienced in that culture. Sorry,
So,
I rambled about that.
no, you did not ramble. What I took away from that, if people aren't being proactive in the city of brotherly love about reaching out, what chances do the rest of us have in the United States, right?
Right.
And so you mentioned going out into those areas where you didn't know information and where you didn't know people and having to connect. Uh, we are real estate professionals. It is a contact sport. We know we have to get out there, but many times we find ourselves, even when we're networking, we're just hanging out with friends and drinking, right?
Oh, no.
Even when we are trying to build our business, is inside those comfort lines or areas. But for you, even in putting the work together, going outside to where you didn't know what you didn't know, and you didn't know anyone. Where did the courage or the confidence come from that, and how can we apply that in our business or our drive in expanding?
Wow, what a question. Where does the courage come from? I guess because I was actually, my youngest years were in a Quaker environment. I was fortunate enough, my parents, our first home was in a Quaker community called Bryn Gweled in Southampton, PA. And in order to get into that Quaker community, you had to interview with 75 families in it and to ascertain that you were not harboring any kind of racist or bigoted viewpoints. You were willing to work in a community environment. You were open to work weekends and hosting children in your home.
Uh-huh.
Everybody had to do that once a year at least, host a children's workshop in their home. So it was an extraordinary environment where I was surrounded by people from different cultures, and they really assertively looked for people from different ethnicities. We had
Hmm.
some of the first immigrants from China in there. We had the guy who invented uh, color TV from RCA. We had, yeah, my best friend was black. Her father was, he was a shoe salesman. And so that's kind of a unique scenario. So I never had any trepidation about walking into an environment where everybody's different. Everybody
Right.
should be different. That makes you richer. That's a good thing. A bad thing is living in a bubble, and
Yeah.
not understanding there's a enormous opportunity to learn and to grow with people who can teach you something, who are smarter than you. And that I
Yeah.
kind of liked that when I was doing the law book, because I'm not a lawyer and I had to learn a lot very quickly. And it's good. It's good for you.
Okay, speaking about learning things very quickly, sometimes we learn from mistakes. And hopefully, we're going to learn from the mistakes of others so we don't have to make them ourselves and cost ourselves relationships, revenue, or embarrassment. So, Terry, what I want to know is, can you share a cultural faux pas or misunderstanding in a business setting that could have been avoided with a bit of preparation or education?
Yes. And it's based upon being a woman. It
Hmm.
is because of my background and because of being um, back in the day being in tech, and most people were men,
Hmm.
and in some parts of the country it's still predominantly male. But you get a lot of visibility, which is great. That's wonderful. But it's also, because of the odds, you're just going to encounter scenarios that would not be as professional, let's say, as you'd like them to be. And so I traveled for my work too. And in certain environments, I didn't pick up on signals from people from South America who were inviting me to dinner. And I expected to go with a group. And I get there and there's one guy there. And I'm thinking, okay, this is great. Thanks. This is wonderful. Ate my dinner, but had to figure out how to extricate myself
Hmm.
uh, gracefully without offending this individual who was a client, but um, had to do something about it. And it was really a learning experience. And it happens to millions of women, whether you're at a conference or you're doing a sales call or you're actually part of a team. And I will say
Hmm.
this, I did this because of a faux pas. When you are the director or the project manager or the leader of the team and you're female, you need to make sure that the men in your group are supportive of you in that role and you have credibility. So I'll give an example. Hans Kohler wrote the for my first edition of Kiss Bow. He wrote the preface, and he was director of the Wharton Export Network at the University of Pennsylvania. Hans was brilliant. He was a German speaker, and we went on a sales call, and we were in an environment with a lot of Germans. So they found out, of course, Hans is standing there and he's speaking. Suddenly, everybody in the room is switching to German and talking to Hans and talking about and I don't speak German. I know a few words. Hans showed me what it looks like to be a professional, gracious individual. He turned to me twice and he said, "Well, Terri, they're asking about this aspect of the contract or this deliverable. What do you think?" And then he had to do it again because they reverted back into German immediately. And he said it again, "Terri, this is where we are now." And then they got it. They understood that I signed the contract. I'm
Ooh,
actually boss here. But if Hans had just started chatting away in German, blithely enjoying the conversation, I would have had no credibility, even though they
right,
booked me and he was my
right,
colleague. That's how it looks when you support a colleague. And it doesn't matter really about the gender as much, it matters about the hierarchy
right.
because sometimes you'll go to the Middle East and the most important person in the room is a little old man and he's sitting in the back. He's the patriarch. He's
Hmm.
the one who everyone will defer to. And if you don't understand that and you completely ignore him because we're your youth oriented in this culture, we don't,
Yes.
you've lost the contract.
Yeah.
So, yeah, faux
So
pas.
so so Terry, right there, I what would you say? Because in real estate specifically, we are a woman, female dominated industry for practitioners, but most of the brokers are male. And so what would you say to the woman in the United States who's saying, no, we have rights, we can do whatever we want, we can be the leader, we do not need the support of a male figurehead, or we don't need them to because the idea is that I don't like it, that it isn't right, even from the cultural part. What do you say to them when they're in these environments? Because that's something that, as I'm instructing CIPS classes and we get to some of the countries and we see that they are just traditionally a male dominated culture. And I address the ladies in the room and I said, ladies, you don't have to like it, but you need to be aware and then make business decisions. How might they navigate this process?
There are a couple aspects that will help you. One is make sure that whoever is the CEO or president or executive director of your firm sends your qualifications to the environment prior to your arrival. This is really critical with Asian clients because they want the research before they meet you. They
Hmm.
do a lot of research and we don't do any. But you make sure that, you know, sorry. But we don't historically do any background data,
Right?
and they will know what your hobbies are before you sit down next to them at a convention. Um, so get that data spread out there, whether it's LinkedIn or your colleagues giving you accolades, preferably even to this extent, you can have a letter of introduction to a Japanese CEO that will help you tremendously because they work hierarchically. So a CEO to CEO communication will benefit you immeasurably. But for a woman, you want to make sure, yes, I understand you want to do what you are capable of, but we all play the game in some aspect. And my game is I gather as much data as I can before I walk in the room.
Hmm.
So that, and if I don't, shame on me. Because if I walk into a room and it's primarily Muslim, and they don't, and they're observant Muslims, okay, and I want to do this exercise in front of a group, and
Hmm.
I'm asking someone to come up, and a gentleman raises his hand and he comes up, and part of the exercise is I want to shake your hand in greeting, and he won't shake my hand because, not because it's me, but because of thousands of years of
Hmm.
religious sensibilities. And the same with an Orthodox Jew. An Orthodox Jew would not shake my hand if he was male. Um, a Buddhist monk would not. So these are things that, women can take umbrage at. I take offense at the fact, here I am in a receiving line and you won't shake my hand. That's that's because you didn't study the culture. You didn't understand. This isn't on me. This is who it's like you were raised loving Italian food. You love Italian food. That doesn't mean that you can't try Chinese food or you can't try Indian food. You should have an open mind to the fact that I'm the supplicant in many situations, so I abide by the sensibilities of the people that I'm with.
Hmm.
And women have exactly, and sometimes more, capabilities than
I
men.
agree. I
Oh yeah,
agree.
but we're also just like many scenarios for any minority, we're not given every opportunity sometimes to shine just because of the statistics.
Hmm.
There's more people of a different ethnicity in Miami or San Francisco than there are in Des Moines.
Hmm.
So you got to think, where am I going to shine? And frankly, if I were going to be an incredible tech entrepreneur, I probably would be living in California, because the odds are better there. Or if you want to be an
Right.
actor, you go to New York. So you got to think about your environment and you got to figure out, where will I succeed? How can I do the best I can?
Absolutely fantastic guidance there, response there, Terry. Ladies and gentlemen, we are speaking with Terri Morrison, bestselling author of Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands. And so I told you this before we got on the air. I am a fan, and then I call Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands, not to be sacrilegious, ladies and gentlemen, but my international business Bible. Is something that I swear by and that I make sure that everyone who has a conversation with me and they say, well, Neal, what's the first step? Oh, kiss, power, shake hands. Super simple, right? So we know what not to do. So we know what to do. And so I want to continue down this path for a quick moment, Terry. Many of our listeners work with high net worth international clients from countries like China, India, Brazil, or Saudi Arabia. What are some key cultural traits or approaches that they should know when engaging clients from those regions?
Wow. Um, Whether they are, as you know, and you mentioned, hierarchical or egalitarian, what are their sensibilities towards religious influences in a business environment? I mean, the Quran prohibits you from charging interest. So
Hmm.
how does that Saudi handle that in the contract, or the mortgage company handle it, or the bank, or whomever? There are a lot of aspects of business that you could you could do the research and you could find out a lot of this online or with your colleagues. You can also get involved in environments that are local to you. I'm sure you have brilliant chambers of commerce, you have a World Affairs Council, perhaps, trade centers, you have universities galore in Florida and all across the world that do specialize now in intercultural communications. And
Hmm.
I think that they, as aficionados of working with high net worth individuals, you want those clients, you want to consider how does it look at their home? What does their family look at when they wake up and see things? What symbols are inappropriate? What colors make them comfortable? What animals are forbidden? What foods are taboo?
Yeah.
All these things are different in every culture. So if you imagine you're in their home, and I guess you could go online and say, give me, Chat GPT, give me the inside of a Saudi home, look at it. Lots of good research.
Good stuff. All right, so now we're going to play this game. I am a real estate agent. I'm flying out tomorrow, Terry, to a high level buyer from another country. What is the one thing that I must learn or research before I get on that plane? If you could say, Neal, you're leaving, you're going to another country to meet a high level buyer, learn, research this before your butt hits the seat. What is that going to be?
You should have a couple of country overview profiles. You should have their LinkedIn profile. You should have Googled them and found out everything you can about their interests, their hobbies, where they went to school. You should figure out if you have any connections that they also may share. When the French hire somebody, they don't really interview you the way we do here. They interview you to find out, who do you know? What do you have in common with our clients?
Mm-hmm.
And they don't ask you like Oracle will ask you maybe for your last year's tax return to prove that you're a good salesperson. The French don't do that. They do a handwriting analysis. There's lots of different things. So, but you gather all that data so you sound like you could sit down with them and say, "Oh, I understand you went to this university. My uncle did."
Mm-hmm.
Or, "I understand you're a fan of jazz. I know, John Baptiste," or something. There's always conversation threads, and you get a few minutes. You want to know 3 topics to talk about and anything you have to avoid.
I absolutely love it. Now, some of our audience might be thinking about getting into the global space, but they don't know where to start. And they could be in real estate, they could be in business, they could be an entrepreneur. What do you or what advice do you share with that person who's saying, man, I know I need to. I know it would be beneficial. I know it's going to increase my odds, but I don't know where to start. Terri Morrison, tell me where to start. Your advice would be what?
I would ask him this question: where would you like to live? What country interests you the most? If you were going to be relocated by your firm, where would you pick? Would you pick South Africa or would you pick Sweden? Or would you pick Singapore? What intrigues you? What do you like about that place? What's, an environment that would make you feel comfortable? Okay, great. Now pick that country to learn about and find some environment that you think you would like to target there. It's got to start with a gut reaction, because that's the thing that they also give you all these analysis in some corporations to say, oh, you're most like, a Peruvian, or you're most, lucky to be in Belarus or wherever it is. It's very hard for me to believe all of those tests because it depends upon the day you took it. It's kind of like, right? So today I feel very Italian. Tomorrow I'm going to be Irish. It's
Yeah.
just, that's where I would start with. And I do that in classes sometimes. I say, where do you want to relocate to? And then it's more fun for the person to
Right.
find out about it.
Okay, so Terry, you just mentioned you do that in classes. We know, well, I am aware of many places where I can find information about you, and we're going to share a little bit of exciting news here in a moment. But where can the listeners, where can our audience go to find out more about Terri Morrison, more about the digital learning platform, Kiss Bow Shake Hands? Where can we go to get all things Terri Morrison?
Thank you. Well, you can go to terrimorrison.com because it'll link on over to my books and seminars and digital and the new announcement that you're You're
Let's
hinting
go.
at
We're ready.
I'm
Breaking news,
excited.
ladies and gentlemen.
So I have never had an audiobook, and I love audiobooks. I don't know. Do you love
Oh,
audiobooks?
come on, because it allows me to, because, and I'm going to say I absolutely love them, but here's why. You mentioned the cognitive load when someone is speaking and then having to translate. And then if you start moving, I'm watching the movements. So now I can sit here and focus on the words and just listen without other things distracting or getting in the way.
Exactly. And you can do it at the gym, or you
Mm-hmm.
could do it while you're cooking dinner on the speaker, or you can do it on the plane. You downloaded the book. And that is how many times I listen while I'm doing a hobby. I'll be gardening and I'll be listening. But that's so exciting for me because I never did an audio book. And we just got yesterday notice that you can pre-order our new audiobook of the Big Red Book, Kiss, Bow, Shake Hands, and it launches on Labor Day. So it's so exciting. I just can't get over it that this massive book, it's almost 600 pages, right?
Mm-hmm.
It took this, and I got to evaluate different voices by Echo Point Books. They did the recording, and they're the professional environment publisher. So they gave me a couple of voices, and I picked a gentleman who's South African,
Oh,
and
I love it.
it's an exquisite accent. He has a lovely voice. Dennis has done. He's a professional narrator, so hopefully it will be easy on the ears, and I got to record the introduction I wrote, and then I also am a huge advocate for the World Affairs Council of Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
Their CEO and President Lauren Swartz, she wrote a brand new preface, which is killer, and she recorded it with me. We went to a studio and did that. It was so much fun. So yeah, it's exciting.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you hear it in Terry's voice. She is like a kid on Christmas. I absolutely love it. And so, in the show notes, you're going to have the link to pre-order the book. This is coming out prior to Labor Day. So, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you go there. Go to terrymorrison.com. Before we go into a bonus round, Terry, I want to leave space for you. Is there anything that you would like to share with the audience that maybe we have not covered in our time together so far?
I think realtors have a tremendously important job. It's the biggest thing I ever buy in my life are my homes.
Hmm.
And I am so grateful that you all have invested your time and energy from all areas of the country and internationally in doing this research. Thank you for participating in this audio podcast and for reading. 500,000 copies of these books are out there. It's incredible, and now we got an audiobook, and I just appreciate you and admire your tenacity in a tough industry too. Good for you.
Man, 500,000 books, and we are not done yet. We're going to see that just multiply exponentially with the brand new audiobook that's coming out with the South African soothing voice. This
Yeah.
is going to be fun, and I cannot wait to have a follow up conversation with Terry so we can hear the bubbly spirit with what I know is going to be a phenomenal launch. So, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank Terri Morrison, author of Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands, for hanging out with us today. But we are not done because now you did give me the okay to have some fun. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, my lawyers, which don't really exist, have made me. So I have to make a disclosure here. You are not legally obligated to answer any of these questions, Miss Terri Morrison. Is that clear?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, here we go. Are you ready to begin, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Favorite color?
Blue, like
Why?
the shirt you got on.
Why blue?
Oh gosh, it's so inspiring. It's such a tranquil color. It's just it takes you from the sky to the sea. It's a perfect
Ooh.
color.
Favorite food?
Uh, Actually, now, my husband just lost 20 pounds because we're eating a lot of salads, and he's, running again, and he's just getting really fit. So,
Uh-oh.
yeah.
Come on, hubby.
So now I'm enjoying salads with salmon or chicken or whatever on top, which I never thought, oh, this is fantastic. It is good. If you get to put a lot of different things on it, salads are terrific.
So now, really quickly, Terry, we're just going to pause with the rapid fire. But how cool is it, and not only cool, but how important is it to do life with someone who, when you support and when you love and when you care for, all of a sudden you open yourself up to a new experience and something that you didn't think you would enjoy. Now you're like, hold on, I can do this as well. Maybe a little bit different. Maybe we load it down. But how important is it to you to do life in a way that is supportive of those around you?
Well, that's what love is, isn't it?
Mm.
If you love somebody, you're going to extend yourself for them because it's important to them. It makes them happy. It's like golf. My husband, I didn't realize, was a huge golfer before we got married. And surprise, he loves golf. He golfs all the time. And I was like, I don't know how to do this. So I had to learn if I
Yeah.
wanted to hang out with him. And I'm not too bad for a beginner and, a nerd out on a golf course, but I can get it forward and that's good. But the thing that was difficult for me was to understand he spends all this time there and I'm working. But
Hmm.
then what happened was I realized this makes him so happy. He comes home and he's happy. He's walking, he's carrying excuse me, carrying his golf clubs, he's fit, and that's less work for me. I don't have to do anything. He's just happy now. So it's great. Yeah. You have to look at it as it's all a win if you just enjoy what they enjoy. Yeah.
So Terry, on that, I am a beginner golfer as well, and my wife is a beginner golfer because she knows that I'm loving it. So she's out there with me, and people are
Oh.
like, "You want to get out there with your husband and play golf?" Or they'll ask me, "You want to play golf with your wife?" I'm like, "Of course, man. I love spending time with her. I would rather spend time with her on a golf course than with you knuckleheads." So when you say that, and the key is you're moving in the right direction. You keep the ball going forward. As long as the ball ain't going backwards, we're winning. So
Exactly.
so so we are okay. Terry, what is one talent that you do not have that you wish you did?
My parents were musicians, and
Hmm.
I wish I could play any instrument or sing or something as well as they did. And it skipped this generation.
Now hold on. Now see, now this is an environment where we want to uplift and encourage. So if you would like to give a live audition right now, if you would like to sing for us, Terry, this would be the place that you can feel safe. Would you like
Uh-oh.
to? No, not
I
today.
I'm not sure about that.
Okay, so we will skip it this time. So now let me ask you, Mickey Mouse or Bugs Bunny?
Bugs Bunny.
Oh, she answered quick. I like that. Hot
Ooh,
or cold?
hot.
Once again, no hesitation. Batman or Superman?
Superman.
Best piece of advice you've ever received?
You can do it.
Your favorite book besides Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands?
Lonesome Dove.
If you are flipping through the channels and a movie is playing, which movie do you stop on every single time?
Probably Lord of the Rings.
Any of them?
Um, The Two Towers.
Oh, okay. I like
Extended,
it.
definitely the extended version of The Two Towers. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And now, my last question. Terry Morrison, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Um, Kind and generous and a good parent.
Oh, come on.
Mm.
Hey, I think you are all of those things, and I am absolutely loving it. Miss Terri Morrison, thank you for going beyond the velvet rope with us today. It has been an absolute pleasure, privilege, and an honor. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you visit terrimorrison.com to see everything, to follow her, to just be engaged in her community. Make sure you visit the link in the show notes to get the pre-release, the pre-order of Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands audiobook. That is going to be exciting. And if you have not purchased Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands, I believe that it will dramatically and positively impact your business. So we want to say thank you for listening. We're going to leave you as I always do, and that is that I love you, God loves you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And until the next time I see you or you see me, don't be average, be world renowned. Peace.